Formula 1 in the 2010s may have been rated by some as one of Formula 1's most repetitive decades, with only 2 different Constructors' Champions and 3 different Drivers' Champions. But one thing stayed competitive, and that was the battle for the best looking car. Over the 198 races between Bahrain 2010 and Abu Dhabi 2019, 19 Formula 1 teams have contested a Grand Prix, and many car designs have been born. For this list, I'm not counting one-off liveries like Alonso's final race livery in the 2018 McLaren, or the 2019 Mercedes in their 200th race special livery at Hockenheim. For cars on this top 10 best looking list, the livery has to have been a full season or at least majority of the season choice. Also, before you descend on my comment section, please remember that this is an opinion based video, and as crazy as it may sound, opinions are allowed to differ. Ready? Let's get into the top 10 best looking F1 cars of the 2010s. Number 10. Kicking off this list, we have Sauber's 2017 contender, the C36. Continuing the blue colour motif that had dominated the team's liveries for the previous 2 years, Sauber replaced the yellow stripe of 2016 with gold accents commemorating the team's 25th year of competition. With additional white panels to complement the blue and gold car, the result was a livery that somewhat harkened back to the days of Ligier and Prost, being one of Sauber's most striking liveries to date. Unfortunately, the car was undoubtedly the slowest of the 2017 competitors. With an underpowered 2016 spec Ferrari engine and a precarious financial situation, Sauber remained rooted at the back of the Formula 1 grid, with Pascal Wehrlein scoring all 5 of Sauber's points that season. At least a spark of things to come shone through, with future drivers Charles Leclerc and Antonio Giovinazzi making their first Formula 1 weekend appearances in the C36. Number 9. After the horrific-looking Tuscan Raider that Lotus fielded in 2014, you'd be forgiven from expecting worse from the 2015 season's E23. However, the infamous 2014 nose regulations had been done away with, and the Lotus that turned up to pre-season testing was a genuinely pretty car. The smooth, rounded nose cone and general design of the car may have been a copy from the team's ill-fated Mercedes partnership, but the incredible black and gold livery set it apart from the rest of the grid. The car, while unreliable, was no slouch. Lotus finished 6th in the Constructors' Championship in 2015 with 78 points, and even scored a podium courtesy of Romain Grosjean. Despite this, financial irregularities cancelled the 6-year Mercedes deal after just 1 year, and the team was sold back to Renault at the end of 2015. The E23 then stands as the final Lotus Formula 1 car to date, a testament to what might have been. Number 8. The 2017 Force India will always be remembered as the car that kick-started the team's pink livery trend, something that carried over to the Racing Point merger and still continues today. However, I think the first car, decked out in a light bubblegum pink with red and black accents, was the best looking of them all. Having such a vibrant livery made Force India stand out even more on track, especially with Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon's infamous habit of crashing into each other. Force India continued to lead the midfield, with Esteban Ocon in particular having an impressive first full season in Formula 1. He finished inside the points at every race in 2017, bar Monaco where he suffered a puncture, and Brazil where Romain Grosjean crashed into him. Force India ended up 4th in the Constructors' Championship with 187 points. This remains the highest points tally in the team's history. Number 7. The McLaren Honda MP4-30, while beautiful, is a bit of a tricky car to put on this list, because the car ran 2 liveries in race trim, the original black and silver chrome livery and the mostly black livery with red accents, used from the 2015 Spanish Grand Prix onward. We will be using the second livery for this ranking. The long teardrop nose worked to great effect on some of the 2015 cars, but the McLaren Honda did it best. Despite being altered for an aerodynamic revision later in the season, the black and red livery combined with the smooth and flowing lines of the MP4-30's bodywork remained one of the 2015 season's standout cars. Pity the performance took a nosedive. The infamously poor Honda engine hampered an otherwise well-designed chassis, and former world champions Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button could only manage a handful of points each. Number 6. Another 2017 car for this list, the Red Bull RB13 is still my favourite looking Red Bull to date. It was a very close decision between the RB13 and its successor the RB14, but ultimately the aerodynamics and shape of the RB13 won out in the end. Like all the 2017 cars, the RB13 had the fantastic looking shark fin, stretching from the main air intake to the low and wide rear wing. The wide flat nose and various aerodynamic parts made the RB13 a low drag setup car like that year's Williams, and while the livery was largely unchanged, it still looked fantastic. Sadly, the car was unreliable by top team standards, retiring from 13 of 40 Grand Prix entries, and it wasn't close enough to the pace of Mercedes and Ferrari to challenge for the 2017 Constructors' title. Number 5. 2010 was a groundbreaking year for Formula 1. After the very competitive environment that characterised the latter half of the 2000s, several teams emerged as title contenders. Ferrari, after a disastrous 2009, was one of those. Their car, the F10, was resplendent in famous Rosso Corsa, with white accents and the 2010 season's fantastic looking shark fin. Coupled with a high rear wing and sharply pointed nose cone, the F10 looked almost uncannily like a single-seater version of a Le Mans prototype. It was undoubtedly competitive too, with Fernando Alonso winning the first race of the decade and 4 more later in the year to miss out on the 2010 Drivers' title by just 4 points. Felipe Massa also added 5 podiums to this total, enabling Ferrari to finish 3rd in the Constructors' standings. Number 4. Anyone who's listened to me talk about Formula 1 teams in the last decade knows that I have a soft spot for Marussia, later known as Manor Racing. They were the truest of minnow teams, a former junior series team with various transient backers that left them barely above the line of bankruptcy every season. Their short-lived year as a Mercedes partner team in 2016 gave us arguably the best looking car on that year's grid. Unmarred by sponsors, the MRT05's gorgeous orange and blue paint job used a colour combination rarely seen in Formula 1. The car's smooth nose cone gave it a unique look as well that I personally loved. Sadly, despite a shock point from Pascal Wehrlein at the Austrian Grand Prix, the team were dead last in the Constructors' Championship and subsequently went bankrupt prior to the 2017 season. I've always wondered how F1 would look if Manor had survived to this day. At least the MRT05 was a fantastic looking send-off to Formula 1's underdog team. Number 3. Here we are entering our top 3. First up is the first F1 car to result from the Alfa Romeo Sauber partnership, 2018's C37. Straight away, I love the simple no-nonsense livery, clean, minimalistic and devoid of most sponsor logos. The white, black and red perfectly complemented both Alfa Romeo's heritage and Sauber's new direction. Sauber also went with a smooth, flat nose cone with its tapered, squarish end, and I think that's the feature that set it apart for me. A beautifully designed car, the C37 also delivered Sauber's best performance in 5 years, scoring 48 points at the hands of future Ferrari driver Charles Leclerc and IndyCar race winner Marcus Ericsson. A decisive new chapter in the history of Sauber began with this car, and what a car it was. Number 2. McLaren in 2010 looked to be on the rebound from a disastrous 2009 season. Having hired the last 2 World Drivers' Champions in Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton, all that was left was a car worthy of the title. The MP4-25 stepped up to the plate in magnificent fashion. The legendary chrome and red livery returned on the 2010 chassis with a much improved and better looking nose and front wing, replacing the previous year's slightly drooping look. Despite early season struggles with downforce and a disagreement with Red Bull over the controversial F-duct system, the MP4-25 proved to be a solid contender for the Constructors' Championship. Hamilton and Button scored a total of 5 wins that season in order to place second behind Red Bull, while Hamilton placed 4th in the Drivers' Championship, 16 points behind Vettel. While McLaren would challenge again for the title in 2012, their poor reliability allowed both Red Bull and Ferrari to surpass them in the standings. Thus, the MP4-25 remains the closest challenger to a Constructors' title from McLaren since 2008. So this is it, the coveted number 1 spot. From a decade of brilliant liveries, there was only one clear winner in my mind since I thought up the idea for this video, and that is the Toro Rosso STR13. The livery is perhaps one of my all-time favourites, let alone of the 2010s, with a deep navy blue that almost looked purple from some angles. Combine this with silver bull motifs and red stripes on either side of the car, and you had a beautiful livery that really stood out on the grid, especially in night races like Singapore and Bahrain. In terms of design, the 2018 car swapped the rounded nose of the previous year's STR12 for a wider, flatter model, while the shark fin was removed. In my opinion, Toro Rosso had one of the best integrated halos, keeping it the same dark blue colour as the main paintwork and blending it well with the rest of the car. The STR13 wasn't the most competitive chassis. While Honda had made great strides with their power unit since the McLaren days, the car was still unreliable and underpowered. The team finished 9th in the standings with 33 points, while 2016 GP2 champion Pierre Gasly scored 29, including a 4th place finish in Bahrain. His teammate Brendan Hartley was perhaps the unluckiest driver of the year, and only managed 4 points. However, both Gasly and Hartley recorded 6th place starts in qualifying, Gasly in Hungary and Hartley in Japan. Hartley left Formula 1 for good at the end of 2018, while Gasly was promoted to Red Bull the next year and swiftly demoted mid-season following a poor run of form. So there you go, those were my top 10 best looking F1 cars of the 2010s. A number of cars nearly made this list, including the Martini Williams, the Sahara sponsored 2016 Force India and the 2018 Haas, but ultimately I whittled this list down to 10. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a like, maybe subscribe, and leave your thoughts or rage-fueled arguments in the comments below. As usual, please visit the fellow F1 YouTuber link in the description and subscribe to their channel as well. It's a great way to help out and promote the Formula 1 YouTube community and find content that you might not otherwise see. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.